So welcome. This is our one of our restarts. We've had several restarts, meaning having something going on.
Recording in progress.
And now we're being recorded, so be careful what you say. Marissa Urrutia is one of our technological assistants, our Zoom maestra this day, and Arlene is playing the music. So welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living on the next version, the reopening. I would like to say, and I think there's part of me that would like to be at something called normal. What I've come to appreciate is normal is where we're at, and there is no other normal. It's not some place we can go. We obviously can't go to the past, and the future we're creating is definitely not going to be the past. So that's lesson number one. We're going to have a song played, an Eddie Watkins Jr. God Is I Am.
I'm going to read today the Prayer for Protection, written by James Dillard Freeman, Unity Church's Poet Laureate. And I invite you to simply take a breath and go within as I read it in the first person and know that this is true for each of us. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. The mind of God guides me. The life of God flows through me. The laws of God direct me. The wisdom of God abides within me. The joy of God uplifts me. The strength of God renews me. The beauty of God inspires me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well.
From Ram Dass Mirabai Bush, Walking Each Other Home, Conversations on Loving and Dying. Cultivate humility and equanimity. Humility in the face of the mystery helps us with the frustration we often feel when we think we are supposed to know it all and be in control of it all, when really we are not. We are merely instruments for a process to go on. You are only one part of the whole unfolding.
What nature doesn't do to us will be done by our fellow man.
Hasn't changed a lot, has it? In 50 years, 60 years. No change.
So that's the point of the song. I have a little personal history with it in that my parents were going to take me to California in about 1960 to visit my sister who had started college there. And somehow they knew about the Kingston Trio and got tickets to see them at the Hungry Eye. And I was very excited, and then I got appendicitis and I had to stay home. I didn't get to take that trip, but I did get there eventually. And as Daisy Beth so poignantly said, things haven't changed much. In fact, it seems like in each period of time, depending upon the lens that you see it, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And a lot of misery, and part that makes most of us sad, at least me, is that it's really quite imaginably could be very different, and it isn't necessary what's happening. So there's that feeling of not only is it bad, but it really is preventable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's partly what I want to talk about is how to experience that and yet be able to be joyous and free. How do we do that? How does that happen? The basic way it happens is sort of the theme of the talk about getting higher altitude to have a different perspective, to experience things differently, and then to create them differently. So how do we fly high? Obviously, some of our teachers and some of our experience in the past had medical or ways of flying high to change a level of consciousness by drugs. Hasn't worked too well in and of itself, but it has pointed the way to different states of consciousness. And of course, throughout history, there have been teachers and leaders and people who could see and feel and experience this higher consciousness, who were able to explain it and more than explain it, they lived it in such a way that people got it, at least for a while. So how does that happen today? Well, one of the things in the current movement, now when I mention movement, I'm not talking about just science of mind and unity and what's on the churchy side of things, an understanding of new thought that grew out of 100 years ago to 150 years ago. That's kind of a historical event, and it's definitely influenced many of the people here. I am more impressed by what's kept that general plot, of that general type of interest going forward, which to my way of thinking has been what I call the Esalen vortex. That in Northern California, starting in the 60s, there was this continual movement of energy and people, fantastic things happening, from Fritz Perl to now we're current people that are still carrying on in that energy, to Jack Kornfeld, and with Ram Dass being one of the people kind of in that energy flow. It led to a whole type of personal growth epidemic that changed how many people have taken some sort of personal growth course, a lot of us. And these all point to how to shift the consciousness. One of the phrases and words that I carry, because I don't remember very much, is attention. Attention. How many of you can hear a myna bird screaming attention? Aldous Huxley wrote a book to that point, and the point, I thought, how else do we say attention? Often in English we'll say, be careful, or in Spanish it's cuidado, which is kind of it's look at something that's happening in your environment and maybe consider doing something different, or taking steps to get out of the way of the train, or duck because the bullets are starting to fly, something along that line. But this attention was the attention within. There's a similar word, which is woke. How many of you are familiar with wokeness in the current, what would I call it? The Black Lives Matter movement as one segment of it, but it's kind of poured over into other things, lesbian and homosexual rights, and partly women's rights. If that doesn't ring any bell with you, my niece would be very disappointed but not surprised. because sees herself as woke. And I think it's an important topic. Read up on it in Wikipedia. It's a very interesting kind of expression of what's going on, I think, and to which I think we need to be woke, or I know I need to be more woke. And that's still exterior. That's exterior. So the Esalen Northern California vortex is about an inward exploration. It's not necessarily in any sense religious. In most senses it's spiritual, because there's a sense of the divine, although many of the people involved would not use that word, even divine, let alone God or anything else. And the question is, though, how to have that consciousness rising. Part of it is stimulated by seeing and experiencing, quote, problems, issues, things difficult, suffering, struggling, either that of others or one's own struggling. So it starts out at a place of in the paradigm of rising consciousness and different levels of vibration, it starts out often in a kind of murky place. A lot of good things come from dark and murky places. And that's where this seems to start, with some discomfort. Something's not right. Sometimes frank down suffering. And the wording that I like is, that's a to-me stage. That most of us as children, and many people for much of their life, have a feeling that life is being done to them, and they're being beat up. And the whole goal is to survive. So part survive and feeling the victim role. Now there are a lot of people who are victimized that don't stay in a victim role, but there are a lot of people that actually haven't been overtly victimized, who are in a victim state, feeling like life is being done to them. The second phase is doing something about it. And that one is more along the lines of what most education programs are about, and what much of the, I believe, the secular philosophy in the United States is about, and that is about getting ahead, taking charge of one's life, going to school, getting a job to have control of income, being able to control your environment. So there's a sense that I can take charge of living, and I can overcome. So that's by me. And it has some things that I found very useful, because when I go within the question, what am I looking for? And I'll tell you what I do, or how I see it at this point. And I look for the feeling states that go along with either being in this survival kind of victim part, or am I in the gotta get ahead, gotta get ahead, gotta get ahead, gotta take charge, gotta do it, do it, do it, do it. If you don't do it, you're gonna be in trouble. That kind of world. Each one of us has a different form of that. For me, if the feeling of victim, the low feeling, is present, one of the ways it shows up is as fear. It's not going to turn out okay. It's not all right. You know, this is okay today, but it's not tomorrow. It's not going to be okay. It's sort of future-oriented. Fear is largely future-oriented, but it's a way of looking at the present, but projecting it into the future and thinking, you know, this epidemic just ain't going to end. There's no end to this, and you know, next year it's going to be worse. That's the feeling. The wording sometimes, and often, I have aspirational grandeur that chooses to say and even sometimes think things that have less truth to them than the actual feeling that I have. The other part of it that kind of leads into the by me is the emotion of anger, and the other one is sadness. So anger is also the perception things aren't going right, isn't going to be the right way, And I don't know if I can make it happen. In fact, I think I'm going to fail because I don't know that I can do this. So that is a projection. It has a kind of a fear thing, but at least for me, and especially men that I know, it has anger. Angry men think that how it's going right now is going bad, and I can't control it, and I'm damn pissed about it, and I'm going to slug out and hit out and do whatever I can to change. The other part, though, is the past. The lack of control of the past. For me, that shows up as sadness. Sadness. It shouldn't have been that way. She shouldn't have died. I should have been able to do that. I should have been there. Regrets and sadness it's a little bit up from being a victim, but it's a self-victimizing kind of state where the inner experience of life is still not very satisfying. And more importantly, it doesn't lead anywhere positive in general to be in that type of by me. I'm somehow supposed to be able to take charge of things. Where's the quote? What did I do with the quote from, that's why I chose this quote. The song I chose because the circumstances outside don't really change much. But the cultivation of humility and equanimity, because it frees us from the frustration we feel when we think we're supposed to know it all, to be in control of it all, when really we're not. We're merely instruments for a process to go on. We are only one part of the whole unfolding. That at least captures 90% of my life struggle. Of somehow I should be able to do it. And if I can't do it, I'm not good enough. If I could do it, it'd be great. I would be more alive, and I would be a success. People would ask me, what did I want to be when I grew up? And my internal response was, oh, I want to be a success. But I had no idea what that meant. What was a success? What was that supposed to be? So those are the trials and tribulations of adolescence. But now, what is being a success? What is being good enough? What is doing well? So, to me, by me. Spirituality begins at the next step in that progression. When there is a sense that although I am not, I'm a person. I have some capabilities, but I'm certainly somewhere in there's a lot of room for humility and equanimity to be quite helpful. But at times, there is a sense of empowerment that is not something that I can exactly take credit for. As Jesus put it, the Father doeth the work. Something happens, and I'm in situations, or I'm allowed to be part of things that are happening where there's unquestionably something good going on. I'm feeling good. There's often, it's helpful, being helpful to other people. Sometimes it's in quote, giving things or just being kind. Other times it's in sharing experiences so that people can, others can have a better understanding of what their situation is and make different choices. Those are the types of times when I feel particularly that sense of aliveness. There's aliveness to it. And that is a higher state of consciousness. So when I say we want to seek higher altitude, that altitude is frequently, for me, associated with being generous and being caring. And when I'm in that place, I feel more alive, and the things that seem so problematic and so burdensome tend to just fall away, tend to not be important. Partly because associated with that is a strong feeling of being here, right now. Another Ram Dass title, book title, and how do we do that? But it's something that the problem solving, I need to take this next step. I've got to read the curriculum. That level of mentality doesn't really serve much to do it. It's accessed often through groups, which is why we do this. It's accessed through stories, the stories of people who have changed, who have gone from to Arlene and I read Chicken Soup for the Soul, and they've got thousands of them. I mean, it's a long thing. Right now we're on a thing about prisoners and people that are in prison, and sometimes it's written by somebody who's helping, going to prisons or has relatives in prison, but most of them are people who have been in prison. But to hear, listen to, not all, but most of the stories of breakthroughs that happened that allowed them to get out of the prison that they were locked into in terms of their soul. They were in desperate places filled with hate and with no sense of possibility and a feeling of total despair and feeling that they themselves were just pieces of dirt, were really of no worth. To move to that, to being abundant people who are able to give and to create a new life, not only for themselves, but for those, but to influence those around them, is inspiring. So these are ways in which the level of consciousness can give us enough altitude. And when I'm in that place, honestly, what we've been going through the last year, which at times has felt burdensome and heavy, and oh gosh, I can't do what I think I'm called to do, and I can't be the way I want to be because I can't do this, I can't talk to them, and I can't travel here. I've spent a lot of time on the to me, and I got to do something about this. I'll create something else, and I'll solve it with my brilliant intellect and my charming personality. Somehow that'll break through and relieve me from the feeling of, oh God, not another day of here we are. That's what, to me, it means to find altitude. To find it's not that I am such a wondrous person, but that my experience of life and my living becomes an amazing thing. At times it is like Arlene and I look at each other and you say, look what we've been doing and what's happened to us and what we've been able to do, and we look at what our stumbles and pains too. We don't always just focus on, wasn't everything wonderful? It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears kind of stuff.
You mean like the kitchen?
Yeah, we did, yes. We've had repair here, so a kitchen repaired and a bathroom at the same time. I don't highly recommend it at all, but we have suffered. We have known the enemy, and it would be us. So one of the other parts that I like about Ram Dass's approach and what he says here comes to being human and yet being divine. There was, in the first 5 centuries of Christianity, there were a lot of conferences trying to figure out all this stuff. The people who had been converted had found the light. When it came to, how do you teach it? What do you tell people we believe? What do we believe? And that was a big, if you're a Greek philosopher or a descendant of that tradition, or a Jewish biblical scholar, the Talmud scholar, and that's pretty. You got to get it explained right. And they had the conference that I liked the most is where they were trying to decide whether Jesus was a human being or whether he was divine. So, in some sense, he was divine. He was the Son of God. I mean, there was something that was just from people's experience and what they've been taught, they clearly got that he was divine. And yet, many times in the Bible, he refers to himself as the Son of Man. He doesn't say, I'm the Son of God. He goes around and says, I'm the Son of Man. He owned his humanity. And this brilliant conference came to a totally nonsensical, in the usual sense of the word, conclusion that yes, he was 100% human. And he was 100% divine. They are not exclusive events. The part of me that is most human, the part of me that feels like, oh God, that happened to me, or I did that, oh no, or what, those feelings, that's my basic humanity. That's my basic, I'm made of skin and bone and blood and some fat. And, I'm just a critter. I'm just a critter. I'm just same critter as my dog. My dog is often smarter than I am, but we're critters. And that's how it should be. And it's not something to say, God, I shouldn't be a critter. I should get those wings and be with the angels. No, I mean, that may come, I don't know. But the flying part is the flight of a very human being, and all the beingness of being human is what we're here to be, and the way in which that moves forward and upward is to realize and accept our divinity. And that isn't just for the saints or the gurus. That's really everyone. One of the teachings I like about Science of Mind is that Jesus was the example, not the exception. Not to be worshipped because he was so grand and I'm just lowly. Acknowledging that there are a lot of different ways and states of which people express their divineness, and a lot of them are a lot more divine than I feel capable of or have expressed, whether it be the people who are making amazing music, or the Dalai Lama and his presence, and the Pope and how they are. If this were a comparison game, it would not. I would not fare well. I might say farewell, but I would not do well. But the truth is that how we are is just as good as we ought to be. Just as good as we've got to be. Striving to be different, to be better, is of little avail. But being willing to step forward and be in that place of allowing the divine to be present within us, to recognizing that we don't make the divine enter us, talk him into it, or think ourselves into it. It's there. It's an awakening. It's a wake up, boy, look at this. It was cloudy all morning. Thought it might even rain. Imagine that. And we have sunshine, and life is like that. If we wait, and the degree I wait and am patient, the clouds open up. And I feel like I'm with the stars, right? And that's what's possible. In that place, there is relief of all suffering. In that place, I can be caring and loving to everyone else. And much of the time I'm not in that place, but that's okay because I'm in the process. So that's my thoughts on flying high. Don't get loaded. I've done that, been there, done that. That doesn't work too well. Find the real natural stuff, the natural medicine which is in our bodies, in our beings, in our communities, and in all the people we interact, and know that you are blessed. So with that, do we have a song that follows all this? We not only have a song, we have a treat. We have a group of people who have bravely decided to step out, to show their true talents. Now, some of this group actually have talent. Some of us are not quite, that wouldn't be the way it'd be described, but well, maybe one of us at least is not exactly talent, but you've got to have some kind of male-female balance, so I get to be in this group. So the newly formed choral group
Come.
with
Come.
Arlene,
And,
Daisy,
and,
Beth,
and,
Peggy,
and we're
our leader.
honestly asking everybody to join in. That way you won't hear us quite so thoroughly. We're passing around some words, but join us.
If you get
You
the
all have
words.
words? Wait a minute.
No, not everybody has words, but this is pretty easy.
It's pretty easy.
We wouldn't be
familiar.
doing it if it weren't.
It's pretty familiar.
We're going to sing a cappella, or as I was taught to call it, Acapulco.
Well, I changed it to Achapala. But so far,
I like that. That's
I
good.
thought that was my
Acapella, I like that.
creativity is part of this. So we are singing Pieces Flowing Like a River.
Pieces flowing like a river, flowing out from you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Joy.
Joy is flowing like a river, flowing out of you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Love.
Love is flowing like a river, flowing out of you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. Hope is flowing like a river, flowing out of you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Love.
Love is flowing like a river, flowing out of you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Thank you.
That was just great.
Two strangers walked into a town, tired, cold, hungry. There wasn't any food in the village. Nobody could share. Nothing to contribute. So they gathered all the villagers together. I mean, everybody was interested. There wasn't much going on in that village. And brought out a big pot, put a stone in the bottom of the pot. And then somebody said, well, we're going to make soup out of this stone. Somebody said, oh, well, I've got a couple of carrots, and went home and grabbed them and brought them back, set it on the fire, got things going. Somebody else had a potato, somebody else had some bread to go with it. Soon the whole village had enough food for a wonderful meal, all from one stone. We all have something to contribute. A potato, an onion, a smile, a song. And this is how things come together. Each of us contributing what, who, and what we are. Every stone, every plant, every tree has something to contribute. And the ants afterwards are cleaning it all up. This is a world of abundant interconnection, giving and receiving. What is your contribution today? What do you have that you can contribute freely, joyfully to the soup that is this world?
It's good to see everyone here, be a part of something in person again. It feels good. So thank you for coming and being part of the community today. And I want to thank a couple of people who are here that are helping it be broadcast beyond the community. Marissa is here to help with our Zoom transmission. And is Miguel still here with you?
No.
Okay. Miguel came to be a second support backup for her. And within the Zoom camera screen, I hope you can still see Rebecca Pina, who also has been backing up the Zoom transmission. And we'll hopefully do better next time for those of you who get to see the movie, because you didn't get to see Zoom. Maybe we'll figure out what might have gone wrong with the link there. So I just invite you right now to allow ourselves to be in this moment, here and now, in this place, in this very room. And take in the words that have been spoken, the feelings that have been experienced, and the opportunity we've had to be together. We just take that in knowing that we are one with that spirit that is the essence and the presence of each of us here, and whatever energetic level, through digital or live, we are one. There is one mind, one life, one God. Our life is part of that life that is the one. We open ourselves up to deepen. While we gain altitude, we're deepening our consciousness in order to shift that attitude that Tim talked to us about today. And I declare for myself and everyone here and within the realm of however you're seeing us, that we are open. We are open to that humility and equanimity that Dave read to us about. To be at peace, to hold that peace, that space, to be peace, to allow it to be through us as we are the channel. No longer the victim that Tim talked about, and no longer the manifester. We're moving beyond the to me and the by me into the as me, that we are open to be that channel for spirit, to allow that movement within us and without us of that great spiritual mind that is in, around, through, and for each and every one of us. We open ourselves up to allow in equanimity, in humility, in peace, and within our contribution to enliven the stone that becomes the spiritual soup. That each one of us knows that if we stayed home with our onion today, we wouldn't have had the same spiritual stew. And a great, great gratitude for all of what we've experienced and how we have embodied today's experience into our lives. We leave here today knowing that we are guided and guarded in that spirit. We take with us the light and the love that we are to emanate it out into the world. We are learning to elevate, eliminate, to emanate, to get that altitude, to help us gain this perspective for better attitude. And our attitude is what's making the difference for us and all of us as we interact with each other and are out in the world, this world that we're watching and worrying and waiting over. We just take it and be whatever the moment brings to us. Allow, allow, allow. And I at least release these words into the law, knowing that it is done as it is said, and so it is. us.
So it is.
One more song to end with.
Everybody up.
We're gonna do the
We
peace
all know
song.
this one.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And let it begin with me.
Thank you all for coming.
Hi there.
How are you doing? Let's see, we need to.
There's Martha Oath is here, and Robert and Maureen. Hi Martha, it's good to see you. And Rebecca.